All right, so we're diving deep today into Proverbs 27:17, and
Oh.
I know you know the verse, iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another.
Right.
But, we're not here to just, like, rehash the obvious stuff.
Yeah.
We got something way more interesting.
Yeah, way more
You
interesting.
got AI analysis
That's right.
of actual sermons
Real sermons.
on this verse.
Not just what the commentaries say,
Exactly.
but how pastors are actually using this
How are they applying this?
in their sermons.
Yes, and, think of it almost as a master class in sermon illustration. That
Exactly.
you can be inspired by for your own sermons or Bible studies or whatever you're doing.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating to me is the sheer variety.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we see pastors tackling this iron sharpens iron analogy,
Yeah.
but they're doing it in wildly different ways.
Yeah, like, for example, strengthening the sacred covenant of marriage.
Right.
Pretty straight-ahead spouses keeping each other accountable.
Yeah, the classics.
Classic take, right?
Right. But then you have a sermon like Strength in Unity, and they're saying it's about friends, being willing to be those challenging voices,
Okay.
even letting themselves rub you the wrong way
Ooh.
so that you grow.
Okay, so
It's
that's...
a bit more abrasive.
Yeah, that's a little more like,
Is that really?
yeah, is that really what the proverb intended?
Yeah. And it gets to the heart of how far can you stretch an analogy
Ooh.
before it snaps?
Right. Like, is that rough friction, really?
Does that help people
Yeah.
understand what healthy relationships should be?
Exactly. And that's where the analysis gets interesting.
Yes.
It's not just what the sermon said,
Right.
but, like, how might people receive this?
The effect it has
Yeah.
on the listener.
Okay, so we had one called Embracing Community
Okay.
that went a completely different direction.
Right.
They did sharpening altogether
Interesting.
and compared community to a grinding wheel,
Ooh.
which I don't know about you, but that's a little...
That's next level.
Yes.
That's refining.
It's intense.
It makes you think, does that resonate
Yeah.
with how church feels sometimes? Is there
No.
this, like, intensity to community that we're kind of shying away from?
Oh, that's interesting.
But they were clever, too. They tied in Ecclesiastes 4.9:12
Okay.
about two being better than one.
Right.
So it's not just refining,
Yeah.
but that vital support system that you get.
Okay, so it's not all rough edges.
Right.
There's also that help.
Exactly.
I like that.
You need both.
Yeah, so I'm curious about some of the less obvious connections that the pastors made.
Oh, yeah, the cross-references.
Yeah, give me some good ones.
All right, so we've got living righteously linked Proverbs 27:17 with Ephesians 6.1018,
Whoa.
the armor of God.
Okay, so how...
Their argument was that surrounding yourself with good people equips you
Okay.
for spiritual battles.
Okay.
Just like each piece of armor protects you.
So the good people are like armor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's clever,
It's clever.
but does that hold up theologically?
Yeah, I mean, does having good friends automatically equal
Yeah.
spiritual protection?
Right. Food for thought for our listeners.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, what else?
All right, we have rooted in Christ, and they took a surprising turn with Job 42.10.
Okay, I like surprises.
Yeah, so Job's fortunes are restored after he prays for his friends.
Oh, that's interesting.
It kind of highlights community's role in spiritual restoration,
Okay.
not just growth.
So it's not just about what we get.
Right.
It's about what we give.
Yes,
So sharpening is reciprocal.
exactly. It adds a whole other
Oh, I like that.
dimension to the proverb.
Okay, so speaking of dimensions,
Yes.
let's get to the part that I know you've been waiting for,
Right.
the sermon illustrations.
Sermon illustrations.
Because some of these were pure gold.
Pure gold.
Okay, hit me with your favorites.
All right, so building meaningful friendships went full on Sesame Street with us.
Oh my goodness.
They used Cookie Monster
No way.
to illustrate self-sacrifice and friendship.
Cookie Monster sharing his cookies. Cookie Monster sharing cookies.
I never thought I'd hear those two in the same sentence.
But it's unexpected.
It is unexpected.
And it makes it work.
It makes it memorable.
It sticks with you.
Okay, I like it. What else?
All right, so strength and unity. They tapped into that universal longing
Okay.
with the Cheers reference.
I love Cheers.
That place where everybody knows your name.
Oh, that's good.
So brilliant, because who doesn't crave that,
Right.
that sense of belonging?
It's so smart. It's like you're subtly linking this verse
Right.
to this dumper human need.
Yes.
And it makes it relatable.
Exactly.
Okay, so we had some sports analogies.
Oh, yeah.
The three-stranded cord.
A
Clacks of options.
And that's the beauty of this deep dive.
Yeah.
We're giving you, the listener, a whole toolkit of
Yeah.
approaches.
Well, a bunch of different ways to approach this.
And which one resonates with you?
Right.
And crucially, with your audience.
That's a great point, because what works for one audience
Exactly.
might not work for another. But here's something that stood out to me.
Okay.
None of the sermons used secular sources
Interesting.
directly to interpret the verse itself.
Yeah.
Like, they had pop culture references.
Sure. For illustration.
But like the core meaning of the verse was always, theological.
But it is interesting.
It makes you wonder, are pastors missing an opportunity?
Right.
Could they be pulling from philosophy,
History.
current events even?
Yeah, make this proverb even more relevant for today.
That's a good question.
It is a good question.
It's an interesting question.
It is.
Challenges us to think outside the box
Absolutely.
of how we prepare sermons.
Yes.
So let's not get ahead of ourselves. We've
Yeah.
still got tons to unpack.
We do.
So stay with us.
Stay tuned. So, it's fascinating how these sermons kind of navigate
Yeah.
the potential pitfalls of this verse, because let's be honest,
Yeah.
Proverbs 27:17 can be misused.
Oh, absolutely.
Iron sharpens iron is not a free pass
Right.
to be harsh or judgmental just because you're trying to help somebody.
Yeah. It's not an excuse to be mean.
Exactly. And thankfully, some of these sermons
Okay, good.
directly address that,
Good.
like building meaningful friendships,
Okay.
really emphasized speaking the truth in love.
Yes.
It's not just about challenging.
Right.
It's also about supporting one another.
Yeah. You got to have that balance.
Right. Otherwise, it becomes iron smashing iron.
Right. Which is not helpful.
Doesn't help anyone.
Nope. And it also reminds us that it's not just about receiving
Yes.
sharpening, but being willing to be the sharpener.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Like, I'm willing to be sharpened,
Right.
but am I willing to sharpen others?
To be the iron and the sharpener.
Yeah, exactly. It's a
Right.
two-way street,
Yeah.
not a one-way critique session.
Not at all. And that brings up the idea of accountability,
Oh,
which several sermons hit on, especially in the context of marriage.
makes sense.
Strengthening the sacred covenant of marriage.
Okay.
Really leaned into that.
Yep.
Spouses have a unique responsibility to hold each other accountable
Yeah.
spiritually, and even suggesting sometimes outside help, like counseling.
Okay. Which, let's face it,
Right.
that's a tough sell for some couples.
It can be.
But the sermon kind of framed it as a way
Okay.
to find those blind spots you can't see on your own.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you need an external sharpener.
Sometimes.
Yeah, to get the job done.
And that's where that grinding wheel analogy is so potent.
It is.
It's like, yeah, refining can be
It
uncomfortable.
can be painful, even
Yeah.
embracing community. Didn't shy away from that.
No, they did not.
They said those disagreements, those challenges, the
Right.
friction, even those are the things
Okay.
that ultimately refine us,
Okay.
make us stronger.
Right. Smooth seas don't make skilled sailors.
Exactly.
But here's the tension I wrestle with.
Okay.
Sometimes those rough patches in church,
Yeah.
I'm like, is this actually helpful?
Right.
Or is this just,
Or is it just negativity?
yeah, like, how do
I
we
mean,
know?
That's a valid concern, and it circles back to that whole idea of Proverbs 27:17 being misused.
Right.
It shouldn't be justification
Right.
for gossip
Or judgment.
or creating a toxic environment.
Yeah, exactly. It comes down to discernment,
It does.
both for the leaders and the people in the church.
Absolutely.
Like, are we creating a community where people feel safe
Safe to be challenged, yes.
to grow,
To grow.
or are we just constantly condemning people?
Right, that's the question.
Yeah, big questions. And it highlights that the goal of all of this sharpening,
Yes.
and really community itself,
Right.
is to make us more like Christ.
It is.
Not more judgmental,
Yeah.
not more critical,
Right.
but more reflective
Of his love.
of his love and grace.
Yes, that's the aim.
That's what we're going for.
That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah. And so that requires grace and truth,
Does.
which these sermons tackled in different ways.
Yeah.
How do we speak truthfully without tearing people down?
It's a tough one.
It's a tightrope walk.
It is.
And I think intentionality plays a huge role.
I agree.
Being intentional about building a culture of grace.
Yes.
Where people feel safe
Safe to be vulnerable.
to mess up even.
And equally intentional about holding each other accountable.
Yes.
But doing it out of love.
Yes.
And a genuine desire to see each other thrive.
And we can't just preach this stuff as leaders.
Right.
We got to live it out.
We have to.
Be the first to admit when we're wrong.
Exactly.
Be the first to admit when we're wrong.
Exactly.
Ask for forgiveness.
Be open to correction.
Yeah, because if we're not willing to be sharpened,
Right.
then why are we trying to sharpen others?
Right. Lead by example.
Yeah.
Be the iron in the sharpener.
As we're talking, it strikes me that this whole concept
Yeah.
applies to us as pastors and leaders
Absolutely.
just as much as it does to our congregations.
We need it, maybe even more.
Yeah.
We need people who can challenge us.
Yes, colleagues, mentors, friends,
Keep those sharp.
like iron needs.
That constant honing.
Yeah. And we need to be willing to be those people for others too.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's mutuality.
It is.
We don't have it all figured out.
No, nobody does.
We're all works in progress.
We are.
We're on this journey together.
We are. And you know that proverb, if you want to go fast, to go alone,
Yes.
but if you want to go far, go together.
I love that.
It's so good.
It's perfect for this.
It captures the essence of Proverbs 27:17.
The power of community
Yes.
to propel us further than we could ever go.
On our own.
Yes.
And ultimately to reflect the image of Christ,
That's what it's all about.
which is what it's all about.
That's the goal.
Right. And these sermons, for all their different approaches and illustrations,
They all point us
point us in that direction.
back to Christ.
Yeah, they remind us that Proverbs 27:17 at its core is about transformation,
Becoming the best version.
becoming the best versions of ourselves.
Yes.
Reflecting God's glory.
Yes.
Making a positive impact on the world,
And that message is just as relevant today.
as it was thousands of years ago.
Absolutely. But we've talked a lot about how.
Right. Different ways to interpret and apply this verse.
Yeah.
Maybe it's time to step back and consider the why.
Okay, the why.
Why is this concept of iron sharpening iron
So important.
so essential?
Mm.
Why can't we just grow and be sharpened on our own?
Yeah, good question.
I think deep down we were never meant to do life alone.
Hmm.
We are wired for community, for connection, for relationships.
It's true.
And it's in those spaces,
Right?
those messy, beautiful spaces,
Yes.
where we're challenged and refined and ultimately transformed.
It's like that saying,
Oh, yeah.
you can't heal in the same environment that made you sick.
That's good.
Sometimes we need that outside perspective,
We do.
that loving push to help us see things in a new light
And to grow.
and to grow.
And that's the gift of Proverbs 27:17.
It is.
It reminds us we're not alone.
We're not alone.
We have each other.
We do.
We have this incredible opportunity
Yeah.
to be both the iron and the sharpener.
Yes.
To experience that transformation
Yes.
in community. And that, my friend, is a journey worth taking together.
Absolutely.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into Proverbs 27:17,
Yeah.
I'm curious what's resonating with you most from all these different approaches.
You know, it's striking to me how
Yeah.
all these different pastors, with their
Yeah.
diverse interpretations or different illustrations,
Yeah.
they all kind of come back to that same core idea
Yeah.
that community is non-negotiable
Okay.
for spiritual growth.
It's not just a nice bonus.
It's essential.
It is.
You need it.
Yeah, and it really drives home the point
It does.
that we need each other.
We do.
Like, we can't become who we're meant to be in isolation.
No, you can't.
It takes those relationships, that iron sharpening iron dynamic.
To refine us.
Yeah, and it's not passive.
No, it's active.
It's like actively seeking out those relationships.
All right, where we can both give and receive.
Yes, give and receive that sharpening.
Be willing to be challenged,
Yeah,
stretched.
even when it's uncomfortable.
Even when it's uncomfortable, because let's face it,
Oh, yeah.
sometimes church feels more like a competition
Right.
than a community.
It does. We get so caught up in appearances.
Right. Proving we've got it all together
Yeah.
that we miss the opportunity for that authentic connection.
You're right. It's like we forget the whole point is to become more like Christ,
Exactly.
not more like the perfect Instagram version of ourselves.
Right. And that's where Proverbs 27:17
Yes.
offers this much needed corrective.
Yes, it does.
It invites us to humility, to vulnerability,
Yeah.
to that realization that we need each other.
We do. We don't have to have all the answers. We can lean on each other.
That's right.
We can grow together. There's something so freeing about that.
There is. It takes the pressure off
It does.
of having to be the perfect Christian,
All right.
the perfect pastor,
The perfect whatever.
the perfect whatever, right?
Yeah, and it opens us up to this beauty of interdependence.
It does. It reminds us of that need for community, that need for connection, that need to belong.
Yeah.
It's woven into our very being.
It's part of who we are.
It's a human experience.
It is, and that's why this proverb resonates
It does.
so deeply, even outside of a faith context.
Right.
It speaks to that longing we all have.
To be known.
To be known, to be loved, to be part of something bigger than ourselves.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
it offers us a way to fulfill that longing.
Yeah.
Not through these superficial connections,
Right.
but through these authentic, intentional relationships.
Yes.
Where we can challenge and support each other.
Yes, and becoming our best selves.
That's it.
So as we wrap up,
Yeah.
I'd encourage you, the listener,
Yes.
to consider,
The role of community.
the role of community in your own life and ministry.
Who are those people who challenge you, who encourage you, who help you grow?
Yeah, who are you doing that for?
That's right.
Because when we embrace this truth of Proverbs
Okay.
2:17, when
Yeah.
we commit to sharpening and being sharpened,
Not only do we become more like Christ, but we help create a world that reflects his love and grace.
and that is a legacy worth leaving.
It is.
So go out there and be the iron that sharpens iron.
That's good.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.